Have you ever wondered if you're storing your food the wrong way? Most of us were taught that the refrigerator is the safest place for everything we buy. But what if I told you that some common foods actually do better when left at room temperature or stored in a cool, dry cupboard? It's true. Many of us unknowingly ruin the taste, texture, and even nutritional value of our favorite foods by keeping them in the fridge. And for older adults, who might already experience changes in digestion or nutrient absorption, these simple mistakes can quietly chip away at your health. That tomato you thought you were preserving could end up mushy and bland. Your bananas might lose their natural sweetness, and that loaf of bread could turn stale much faster than you realize. In this video, we're going to reveal 8 everyday foods that you should never refrigerate, even if the label suggests it. By understanding the science behind why these foods don't belong in the fridge, you'll not only save money by reducing food waste, but also improve the quality of what you eat. Whether you're trying to eat healthier or simply want to get the most out of your food, knowing where and how to store your food properly can make all the difference. Stay with us until the end, and you might just find yourself making small changes in your kitchen that will have a big impact on your health and your meals. Let's dive into it together. Let's start with one of the most common foods that many of us store in the fridge without thinking twice: tomatoes. Have you ever noticed that your tomatoes lose their flavor or become mushy when you take them out of the fridge? You're not alone. This happens because cold temperatures actually stop the ripening process. When tomatoes are kept in the fridge, the cold slows down or completely halts the development of sugars and acids, which are responsible for their rich, deep taste. The result? Your tomatoes might look perfectly fine, but when you bite into them, they taste bland, watery, and less satisfying. The texture also changes, turning from juicy and firm to mealy and grainy. In fact, research from the University of California has shown that refrigerating tomatoes can reduce their flavor by up to 60%. But the damage doesn't stop there. When tomatoes are stored below a certain temperature, their cell walls begin to break down, causing them to decay faster once they're brought back to room temperature. So even though you might think you're preserving them, you're actually shortening their shelf life. Let me tell you a story about my friend Carol, who always refrigerated her tomatoes without realizing the impact. After watching a video on this topic, she decided to try leaving her tomatoes on the counter. Not only did they taste better, but they also lasted longer and didn't spoil as quickly. It's a simple shift, but it made a noticeable difference in her meals. Now, instead of putting her tomatoes in the fridge out of habit, Carol keeps them in a bowl on the counter, away from direct sunlight. And if she wants a chilled tomato for a salad, she pops them in the fridge for just 30 minutes before serving. So, next time you bring home fresh tomatoes, think about where you store them. By keeping them at room temperature, you'll not only preserve their flavor and texture, but you'll also get the most out of them nutritionally. Trust me, it's worth the small change. Now let's talk about bananas. Many of us throw our bananas in the fridge, thinking it will help them last longer. But in reality, refrigeration actually works against them. When bananas are kept cold, the ripening process stops completely. If the banana isn't fully ripe when you put it in the fridge, it will remain hard, dry, and flavorless. Not only that, but the peel often turns dark or even black, giving you the impression that the banana is overripe or spoiled. But when you peel it open, you'll find the inside is still firm, flavorless, and not sweet at all. In fact, research has shown that bananas stored in the fridge lose up to 50% of their sweetness compared to those stored at room temperature. Let's take a story of my neighbor Linda used to refrigerate her bananas, especially when they were ripening too fast. She would get frustrated when they didn't seem to taste as good and the texture wasn't right for her morning smoothies or banana bread. After learning that bananas should be kept on the counter, Linda decided to change her approach. She began leaving them out at room temperature, and not only did they ripen properly, but they also developed that rich natural sweetness that makes them so enjoyable. The peel still darkened, but the inside was perfectly soft and sweet. She even started using a simple trick to slow down the ripening process, placing the bananas in a paper bag, which helps trap the ethylene gas they naturally release, speeding up ripening when needed. For older adults who may rely on bananas for their fiber and potassium, this small change can make a big difference. By allowing bananas to ripen naturally at room temperature, you not only enhance their flavor, but also maximize their nutritional benefits. Bananas are a great source of energy and digestive support, and when they ripen properly, they're easier to digest and better for your health overall. So, the next time you bring home a bunch of bananas, skip the fridge and let them ripen on the counter. You'll enjoy them more and get the full nutritional value. Next, let's take a closer look at potatoes. Potatoes may seem like the kind of food that can handle just about anything, but when it comes to refrigeration, they're more delicate than you might think. Storing potatoes in the fridge can actually make them taste sweeter, not in a good way. The cold temperature causes the starches in the potatoes to convert into sugars faster than they should. This shift in chemistry changes the way they taste and cook. Potatoes that have been refrigerated can have a strange sweet flavor, which can throw off your recipes, especially if you're making mashed potatoes or fries. In addition to altering the flavor, the texture of refrigerated potatoes can also become off. The cold can break down their cell walls, resulting in a gritty or watery texture instead of the fluffy, satisfying bite you expect. Even worse, when you fry or roast refrigerated potatoes, the higher sugar content can cause a chemical reaction called acrylamide to form. Acrylamide is a substance that forms when starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures and has been linked to health risks when consumed in large quantities. This is especially important for older adults who may already be mindful of their blood sugar and heart health. To avoid all of these issues, the best way to store potatoes is at room temperature in a cool, dry, and dark place, like a pantry or basement. You want to make sure they have good air circulation, so storing them in a paper bag or a basket works well. Avoid keeping potatoes in plastic bags, as this traps moisture and can lead to mold growth. My friend Tom, who enjoys making hearty potato soups for his family, used to refrigerate his potatoes to keep them fresh longer. However, after learning the science behind it, he decided to start storing them in a cool cupboard instead. The results were noticeable. His potatoes tasted better, cooked more evenly, and had the right texture, whether he was roasting them or boiling them for soup. So, the next time you go to store your potatoes, think twice before you pop them in the fridge. Keeping them in the right environment will ensure they stay fresh, flavorful, and safe to eat. It's a simple change, but one that can make all the difference in your meals. Moving on to garlic, one of the most versatile and flavorful ingredients in our kitchens. Many of us have been guilty of storing garlic in the fridge, thinking that it will keep longer, but in reality, refrigerating garlic can cause it to lose its firm texture and develop a rubbery, soft feel. The cold and damp environment of the fridge encourages the garlic cloves to sprout green shoots, which are not only unpleasant to look at but also affect the taste. These sprouted cloves often have a bitter flavor that can throw off the balance of your dish, especially when you're using raw garlic or lightly cooking it. Beyond that, the moisture in the fridge can lead to mold growing between the layers of the garlic bulb. By the time you notice the mold, it may have already spread to several cloves, rendering them unusable. So, what's the solution? Garlic thrives in a dry, well-ventilated space. A small basket or mesh bag on your kitchen counter or pantry shelf is the perfect environment for garlic to stay fresh for weeks, even months, without any refrigeration. The key is to keep the garlic bulb intact, as breaking it open will shorten its shelf life. If you have leftover garlic cloves that you've already peeled, it's okay to refrigerate them in an airtight container for a short period, but it's better to use them up quickly. My friend Mary, a passionate cook, used to keep her garlic in the fridge, thinking it would last longer. However, after learning that garlic doesn't need cold storage, she moved it to her pantry. Not only did her garlic last longer, but it also maintained its firm texture and rich flavor. She now enjoys cooking with garlic that adds the depth and warmth to her dishes that it's known for. So, the next time you buy garlic, remember that it's best kept outside the fridge. It will stay fresh longer, maintain its flavor, and save you from throwing out moldy cloves. The simple habit of keeping garlic in a dry, cool place can make a big difference in the quality of your cooking and ultimately in the meals you prepare. Now, let's talk about onions, another staple in most kitchens that's often wrongly stored in the fridge. If you've ever taken an onion out of the fridge and noticed it felt a bit damp or had a stronger than usual smell, you're not alone. Onions thrive in a dry, cool, and well-ventilated space, and the fridge is far from ideal. When stored in the refrigerator, onions absorb moisture like a sponge, which can lead to them becoming soft, mushy, and moldy. The moisture trapped under the papery skin also causes them to break down faster. Furthermore, the strong sulfur compounds that give onions their distinct flavor can spread throughout the fridge, causing other foods like butter and berries to take on that oniony smell. You might not even realize it, but your fridge could be filled with unwanted onion odor. Storing onions in the fridge also accelerates sprouting. The cold, moist environment signals the onion that it's time to start growing, and the green shoots that form not only change the onion's texture, but also make it taste bitter. So, how should you store them? The best way to keep onions fresh is in a cool, dark place with good air circulation. A pantry, a mesh bag, or an open basket works wonders. You want to avoid plastic bags, as these trap moisture and speed up spoilage. My friend Steve, who loves to cook his own meals but had trouble with onions sprouting too quickly, made the switch after learning this. He started storing his onions in a dry, open bowl on his kitchen counter. Not only did the onions last longer, but they also kept their crisp texture and sweet, savory flavor. Steve was thrilled with the improvement, especially since his onions no longer ruined the taste of his dishes. And here's something interesting. According to the University of California, onions stored in the fridge can lose up to 30% of their quality, especially when exposed to moisture. For older adults who often rely on the strong flavor and nutritional benefits of onions, storing them correctly can mean a world of difference in their meals. So next time you think about putting your onions in the fridge, remember that they deserve a better home. By keeping them in a well-ventilated space, you'll extend their shelf life and preserve the flavor that makes them such an essential part of so many dishes. Now, let's move on to another kitchen item that many people wrongly store in the fridge: bread. It may seem logical to put bread in the refrigerator to keep it fresh for longer, especially when you've bought a large loaf or a bag that's been sitting around for a few days. However, refrigeration actually speeds up the process of bread becoming stale. This happens due to a process called retrogradation, where the starch molecules in bread begin to crystallize when exposed to cold temperatures. This crystallization forces out moisture, leaving the bread dry, hard, and unpleasant to eat. You might notice that refrigerated bread feels like cardboard when you try to toast it or make a sandwich, and that's exactly why. According to studies from the University of Illinois, bread stored in the fridge can lose up to 40% of its moisture and become stale much faster than bread stored at room temperature. Take my neighbor Sarah, for example. She used to keep her bread in the fridge because she thought it would keep longer, but after learning that refrigeration actually ruins the texture and flavor, she switched to storing her bread in a bread box or on the counter, inside a cloth bag or a paper bag. Not only did her bread stay softer, but it also tasted fresher for longer, and she no longer had to deal with stale, tough slices. So, what should you do if you've got extra bread that you won't be able to eat in a few days? Freezing it is the best solution. Freezing helps preserve the bread's freshness without changing its texture, and you can easily pull out slices as needed. When you're ready to eat it, just toast it straight from the freezer. It'll taste just like it was freshly baked. This is especially useful for older adults who may not consume bread quickly enough to finish it before it goes stale. By freezing bread instead of refrigerating it, you preserve its quality and avoid wasting food. So, next time you buy a loaf of bread, skip the fridge and keep it at room temperature, or freeze it for later use. It's a simple change that can make a big difference in the quality of your meals and save you from dealing with stale bread. Let's now turn to honey, one of nature's most amazing foods. It's not just sweet, but it also has natural antibacterial properties and can last for years without spoiling, if stored properly. However, putting honey in the fridge is a big mistake. When honey is chilled, it begins to crystallize, turning from a smooth golden liquid into a thick, grainy substance. Over time, it can become so hard that it's nearly impossible to scoop out of the jar. Many people mistakenly think that crystallized honey has gone bad and toss it, but that's not the case. Honey can crystallize naturally, and it's still perfectly safe to eat. The problem is, storing it in the fridge speeds up this crystallization process. Honey's natural sugars are sensitive to temperature, and when placed in the cold, they begin to separate from the water content, forming tiny crystals that change the texture. For example, my friend David loves adding honey to his tea every morning. He used to store it in the fridge to keep it fresh, but after realizing the impact of the cold on its texture, he moved his honey to a cupboard instead. Now he enjoys smooth, runny honey every time he wants it, without the hassle of trying to warm it up. The National Honey Board recommends storing honey at room temperature in a sealed container, away from heat or direct sunlight. When stored properly, honey can remain perfectly usable for years, keeping its flavor and health benefits intact. For older adults who may use honey as a natural sweetener, this simple step of storing it correctly can make a big difference in maintaining its texture and taste. So, next time you're tempted to put your honey in the fridge, remember that it doesn't need the cold to stay fresh. Keep it in a cool, dry place at room temperature, and you'll enjoy its sweetness and benefits without the hassle of crystallization. Whether you're drizzling it over oatmeal or stirring it into your morning tea, proper storage will keep it just the way you want it, smooth, sweet, and ready to use. Finally, let's discuss coffee, a beloved daily ritual for many of us, especially in the mornings. If you're someone who enjoys a fresh cup to start your day, you might be surprised to learn that storing your coffee in the refrigerator is actually a mistake. While it may seem like a good idea to keep it fresh and away from heat, the fridge is not the right place for coffee, whether it's in beans or ground form. The first problem is moisture. Refrigerators are damp environments, and coffee is highly absorbent. When coffee sits in the fridge, it can absorb moisture from the air, leading to clumping, a stale texture, and a loss of flavor. Even worse, coffee also absorbs odors from surrounding foods. If you've ever opened a bag of coffee and noticed it had an off smell, chances are it's absorbed the aroma of something else in the fridge. This can affect the taste of your coffee and make it less enjoyable to drink. My neighbor Bob learned this lesson the hard way. He used to store his coffee in the fridge to keep it fresh, but noticed his morning brew was tasting flat and smelled strange, even though the coffee was fresh. After doing some research, he found out that the fridge's dampness and odors were compromising the quality of his coffee. Now, Bob keeps his coffee in an airtight container at room temperature in a dark cupboard. Not only has the flavor improved, but his coffee also smells fresher and brews more evenly. According to studies from the Specialty Coffee Association, storing coffee in a cool, dry, and airtight container is the best way to preserve its freshness and flavor. Coffee beans release volatile oils that are essential for their rich flavor, but these oils begin to break down when exposed to air, moisture, and heat. By keeping coffee in an airtight container away from the fridge, you're helping to preserve these oils, which in turn enhances the aroma and taste of your coffee. For older adults, who may already experience changes in taste and smell, keeping coffee fresh is important for maintaining the enjoyment of that daily cup. So, if you've been storing your coffee in the fridge, try switching to a cool, dry spot at room temperature and store it in an airtight container. You'll notice the difference in flavor and aroma. Your morning cup will taste as good as it should, and you'll get the most out of your coffee. It's a small change, but one that can make a big difference in the quality of your morning routine. So, as we wrap up, it's important to take a moment and think about the habits we've formed over the years. How many of us have been storing tomatoes, bananas, potatoes, or bread in the fridge without even thinking twice? Now that you know the right way to store these foods, you can start making small changes that will help preserve their flavor, texture, and nutritional value. Not only will you enjoy better meals, but you'll also reduce waste and save money by keeping your food fresh for longer. For older adults, this awareness is especially important, as proper food storage can make a big difference in digestion, taste, and overall health. You might be surprised by how something as simple as not refrigerating your bananas or tomatoes can improve the quality of your food and your daily routine. So, next time you unload your groceries, remember the tips you've learned here today. It's never too late to make a positive change in the way you store food and take better care of your health. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. I'd love to hear what changes you're going to make in your kitchen. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content that informs and inspires. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.